What's up, guys? To the Kyle Podcast Show for English, just so we pass. I guess we'll pass regardless, but
So magically,
I
we're
would still like to do well.
we're supposed to.
We wrote some essays about some topics that are completely irrelevant from each other, but we're going to try and link them together and talk to you
Somehow
in
we're
this little
supposed to link
podcast
them
show.
together.
We got Star Wars and pretty much Elon Musk's baby child, Tesla. I gotta look up my points before I can say
I got
anything.
them right here.
Sick, dude. I don't know. What do we want to talk about? What do you want to hear about, Owen? I'll give you some interesting facts. Do you know you could travel anywhere in the U.S. to anywhere else in the U.S. using only Tesla's charging stations?
So do you think there will be a basis for fuel stations in space?
I don't know. Thered have to be some kind of electric charging station eventually. Because, I mean...
But our spaceships run on electric charging.
I would hope so eventually somehow we manage to find a non-bio-based fuel source. Because if we run the Earth dry eventually and there's no other life in the universe, then we'll have no more oil fuels. We'd have to come up with something else. Although I don't know if there's non-plant-based matter, rocket fuels.
But what about this? What if, let's say we do find a way to use electric to power spaceships or anything to be sent off into space.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to those other planets, and there's like
Bunch of other life.
fossil
that
fuels
point-
that we can use to
If we already built electric ships, though, wouldn't it be a step backwards if we did find more of that
what
resource?
if that resource was more efficient than gasoline, diesel,
I guess we'd have
or
to see.
solar power?
In a way, right now, that is electricity because we found something
But
that's
would we
better
take-
than and more efficient than what we had.
Let's just say if this planet was like desert.
Mm-hmm. So it's like a cream pie or something.
Yeah. Let's just
like a
say if it
nice
was
pastry.
like empty and there was a lot of like resources that we could use, but we take these resources and that planet ends up being dead, but it helps us a lot. Would you be willing to do that?
So you're asking if we're willing to be Christopher Columbus with the Indians.
Yes, but there is no life on that planet.
So there's no life on the planet and you're pillaging it, I think it would be fine. But if there's life on there, I guess it's a matter of the whole human race's needs as general.
Okay.
Obviously, if you've advanced farther.
So how about that whole ion thing on my specter of the
Twin ion engines or single ion engines?
Yeah, the podcast.
I don't know. I guess it solves one issue is that even though it's using a non-renewable resource in a sense, it's using it so efficiently that it doesn't matter.
How about we get into...
And you'd still need rocket boosters for the ion engines that even are employed on current spaceships.
How about we get into what the ion engines are and what fuel they use?
I don't know exactly what fuel, but basically ion engines blast a bunch of energy and shoot off the actual
Just
ions from those
basic
particles out the back. And it shoots so many little ions out the back of the engine that it produces enough force to hold the spaceship at a very high speed through space. I guess, what was it, like 50 kilometers per second or something like that?
40.
40? No, I thought it was 50 for ion. It's fast.
Yeah.
The issue is it's about as much force as a piece of paper resting on your fingers.
So you need...
Something to boost it to that speed.
A normal
and then
rocket to get it up into space, and then the ion...
would force it. Or you would send it up to, say, a space station where you could launch it.
Yeah, because you can literally stick your hand behind this engine, and it just like...
I don't know, it might be pretty hot. But, like, the force would
But
be
the
equal
force,
to a piece
yes,
of
that's
paper.
what I'm trying to say.
It's like the force of gravity on a piece of paper on your hand would be equal to that of, say, an ion engine. So they're not very powerful, but in the frictionless vacuum of space, they could send you somewhere very quickly.
Yes.
And, of course, there's fancy stuff like wormholes, but...
I'm not sure... How hot do they run?
Oh, what about SpaceX going to Mars?
What?
What about going to Mars?
Oh. I thought you said something else.
Oh, like SpaceX is going to Mars.
Yeah. That'd be... the electric cars on space.
Yeah, because you can't have a fuel source out there that isn't electric.
Yes.
You'd have to build off solar or wind.
Which we've already done before, and no one's taken that anywhere
Although,
else.
I guess you could go nuclear.
Yeah, but...
Isn't that what the Curiosity rover uses?
Yeah.
It's like nuclear powered without radiation shielding because who cares? It's up in space and it's not close enough to hurt anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say electric would be a lot better, especially since there's probably not going to be a lot of nuclear material up there. I don't know.
Now,
Shouldn't
what about light speed traveling? What would we use for light speed traveling? Would we?
I don't think we will ever travel anywhere near the speed of light.
You don't think so?
I think we would use wormholes. I think we would have to bend space-time to jump between 2 points by bending space or increase space behind us as it
I've known that
front of
whole
us.
wormhole thing.
Because if there is a way that we can decrease the space in front of us and increase it behind us, we could be traveling 0, speed, but transport anywhere. Oh, dirty wall power? You know what dirty wall power is?
This is dirty wallpaper.
I didn't mean to put paper.
What is dirty?
Do you have dirty wallpaper?
No, what is dirty wall power?
Well, dirty wall power generally is a term used to describe inefficient wall power. So if you say have a brownout, you're on film. Staying in. Dirty wall power would be like if you had a brownout where the wall power is inconsistent, so the voltage drops or the amperage drops, and therefore your lights flicker in or out. I think specifically in my notes I put it because as you charge more electric cars on the grid, it's a common misconception that you could be putting too much of a load on that grid. Like, say in this middle of the summer when you have everyone turning their ACU units on everywhere, it all of a sudden might cause a brownout for a day or two or whatever. However, it's not as bad as a lot of people like to hype it up as. I think an electric car is equal to that of, say, a small air conditioning, and it only runs at night when most people aren't using the electrical grid. If you just plug it in at night before and then drive it away in the morning. And then there's a lot of places that are already moving towards more efficient energies that are filling the electrical grid back up. People who are going to solar to charge their electric cars, because if you have the money for an $80,000 electric car, you might invest in solar panels down the line or something along that. And then I think Tesla, or it might be, no, it's not space. I think it's Tesla. They're building the Gigafactory, which is just this huge gigawatt solar factory or whatever. And that's going to help feed the grid, power more electric cars.
So what about the whole environmental?
Actually building the cars?
No, not.
Because the Prius is cleaner than building an electric car.
So literally, building an electric car does so much more damage. This might be a misconception. Does so much more damage. So you have all the boats that have to travel
back and forth.
You have the waste
itself.
of it. You have to have the mine and stuff like that.
At the beginning, I did agree with you, and then once I actually started doing more research, I found a lot of cool information. A lot of the Teslas and stuff, they don't just destroy them and take them back down to base lithium to recycle them using tons of chemicals. They'll actually reuse some of the battery packs, fix them, and then use them for, say, the Tesla walls and the storage tanks and stuff like that. Or they'll use them in other solar storage, or people will actually buy them and salvage them. And the recycling isn't necessarily like you would recycle metals where you melt it back down. Tesla's such a unique brand that a lot of the recycling is just people buying it and making their own projects, but just keeping that out of landfills and still doing something useful electrically
So what about
with it.
the mining and the boats that have to spend so much gas?
The boats right now are probably the biggest issue. However, there's probably a lot of advancements in sailing and whatnot, but specifically mining, trying to clean up that aspect. Even Volvo right now already has an entire quarry run only by electric vehicles, meaning they're mining the earth, transporting that material around that general area using all electric, Volvo vehicles. I think every single company has at least one electric vehicle, heavy equipment machine on their roster. I know there's some Japanese company that has one that's pretty popular, starts with a K, I forget what it is. And then there's John Deere has the 644K. Now these use a very small diesel motor to power a larger generator, which then it's completely electric drive. You may think, well, you're still spewing out diesel, but you're always running at 1 RPM, or I guess one specific RPM, which would be probably 2,000 RPM, which makes it a lot easier to control the emissions, to tune it, beautifully to run with that generator. You don't have varying load. It's a constant load from the generator. You only have to run it when the batteries are low or dead, so you don't have this constantly running. It's a much smaller motor because its workload overall is much smaller, so you're not using as much fuel. And it's just generally better, and I'm sure down the line, once it becomes more common practice for these to become electric, they may go full electric and then just have charging stations where they can swap two vehicles out.
Do you think that ion engines will ever be used on the surface to make them more like
I think they're gonna have to
efficient?
I think they're gonna have to do a lot of work to make them have enough thrust to be efficient for ground travel. I don't think on Earth we're gonna see it maybe in our lifetimes, but I think maybe if we ever did establish, say, a moon base, it may be enough lack of air friction from the lack of atmosphere and the low gravity that maybe we could use ion engines for something. Or I think maybe we could use them in orbit to hold more spacecraft in orbit, adjusting them slightly as they want to get pulled in just naturally instead of using gasoline fuel. However, we don't use much gasoline fuel to keep those, so in a perfect world, maybe we would use ion engines for orbits. You do have a good point with those boats, though. I don't know what they could do about fixing boats.
Oh, I mean,
because a lot of the factories are going greener using solar, power. But the boat specifically, I mean, you could power and build an electric boat, but something that large.
Ion engines, underwater.
Would you have less or more friction? I guess it depends on the speed.
Yeah.
No, I guess it wouldn't, because as you go faster, you're still trying to move the water molecules out the way. I don't know. Something I don't know enough about to make a judgment on. It would be cool, though, to have, like, ion submarines.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
I think electric drive is going to surpass ion, except in the case of space. Because there's no way that we currently have that I know of that you can turn, a differential of electrons in a battery into thrust. You have to run it through a motor or something along that lines before you can get it down to, say, wheels, or it'd be even harder in space because even if you could put a motor on it and have it spin a wheel, it doesn't do anything. You have to eject mass, which in an ion engine, it's ions. In, a rocket jet or something, whatever you use, it would be the actual fuel burning off is sending out all its emissions, which are pushing the rocket. Do you know those bring up their own oxygen? Because as they leave the atmosphere, there's there's no oxygen for that rocket fuel to burn. They actually have to have a separate tank solely for oxygen to burn that fuel.
All
so
right.
they have like liquid oxygen on board. I didn't know that. See, it's something you seem to be common sense. It's like there's no oxygen up there. You have to bring your own oxygen, but it's not something we think about.
Yeah.
My Google Drive isn't loading.
So, do you think Star Wars has anything to do with any advancements in space travel and or electric anything?
I don't think Star Wars has done anything technological directly.
But given ideas
for anyone, but I think it's such an inspiration to so many people that it's probably had a heavy amount of influence. The interest in space travel, I'm sure, has been interested.
I mean, even like no one really thought of using. In 1977, no one used twin ion engines in space.
And then the popularization, maybe that helped influence scientists at NASA researching propulsion to look more into ion engines, because that was based in actual fact at the time. Even if you didn't mean it to be so much so, it is true, because we have single ion engines. But I also think it's a huge inspiration in general for people who want to go to space. I mean, I don't know if Elon Musk, my man himself, was inspired by Star Wars.
Look out.
But I think definitely people who say want to work at NASA and work in propulsion or anything along those lines of furthering our exploration in space could have been influenced by a lot of this popular media, which is only a good thing. And I think it's far-fetched enough that it's not giving a false idea of what space travel is going to be, unless you're 3 years old and can't tell the difference between, spaceships in Star Wars and spaceships in real life.
3, 2, 1, 0.
So particularly when I was a kid, I just consumed like all science fiction and fantasy.
Yeah, so even Elon Musk, the man himself going to space and who built up Tesla, was influenced by Star Wars and other media.
And in terms of sort of key influences, I certainly like Star Trek because that actually shows like more of a utopian future. Like it's not like things like aren't horrible in the future. Like it's like there's so many bloody post-apocalyptic futures. Like okay, can we have one that's nice? Just a few. It's like so I like that about Star Trek. In terms of some sort of key books and movies. I mean, obviously Star Wars. Like Star Wars was the first movie I ever saw, so obviously that's going to be fairly influential. It's like I never seen a movie in a theater before. It was sort of like just played it on loop for me. Yeah, so it was like super great.
Okay, so there you go.
That's cool.
It was a key influence. All right, there you go.
So Elon Musk is
The only reason Elon Musk ever went to space was Star Wars. The end. Goodbye. Elon Musk is Darth Vader.
It's a stretch. I don't know about that, but
It was a joke.
What next? Lay it on me. Criticize me.
I mean, I don't really want to I guess I can.
No, I would like to hear a good argument, because I know you're not huge on electric cars and you like your little flat 4 gas motors and stuff like that. So, I mean, even if you do prove me wrong and there's nothing I can come back with, I think that's a good thing.
What's the thrill from electric?
In what sense? Because there's lots of different thrills you can have with lots of different cars. You can get sideways.
Shifting gears.
You can still have a manual.
Hold on.
Electric cars.
Shifting gears. Most of them run on single speed right now, though.
There's a lot of 2-speeds which use rebuilt Porsche motors, and there's some
So
which
you're
even
basically
convert
using
the
womp,
5-speed.
womp to second.
There are ones that use the stock 5-speed transmissions, say from like Subarus and stuff like that, and they rebuild them to be stronger, and then they'll have 5 gears.
Okay. And then the noise, the thrill of
I don't know. There's a pretty nice electric whine you get.
Yeah, but that's not you can't deny the engine.
You can't. Yeah.
The engine noise. Okay. Now, what if we're talking about this? I guess real cars are a lot more dramatic. You've got linear power on a Tesla. It just keeps going and going and going until it gets to its top speed.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what if you got, let's just say, turbo lag or different power bands? I mean, there's things like that
that's a
people
positive
actually live
and a
off
negative though, because
I mean, in racing application, yes, those are negative. But in the fun factor, I mean, you've got those hybrids that
you can also slam your foot down at any speed and any point and spin the rear tires on, say, a rear-wheel drive Tesla. You have that ability because you have so much instant torque. And say you build a really high-power electric, that doesn't make it boring because it's linear. If you're quarter throttle, just cruising along, and you put it to the floor, you will spin out instantaneously because of that instant torque. You can build 1,000 foot-pounds of torque instant electric cars.
You know you have to disable certain things to get the traction control off on a Tesla.
Yeah, but in general electric cars, there are things you can do. They're not just these boring slabs of A to B, self-driving, just luggage.
But there's no soul in them.
I don't know. I think there's soul. You imagine someone who's been spending, years researching and spent months and months building this electric car.
Is it spending years of research, or is it spending billions of dollars?
I hope it's average Joe who just wants to convert his electric cars and spending billions of dollars.
I'm talking about Tesla.
But for Tesla, it is billions of dollars.
I want a mass-produced electric car that actually has quote-unquote passion in it. When I get in my car, I feel like someone actually built this because they wanted it to be for me and for you. Tesla just feels like, hey, here's an electric car. We're going to start saving the universe.
It's also the forefront of technology. It's the first really of its kind to be mass-produced and built like this. So I think there's a lot of soul in the fact that it's literally the only of its species really to come out and be successful. I mean, other companies have the Nissan Leaf or, cars that I think they specifically built to be bad because they don't want to take away from their gasoline roster. But Tesla can just reign free and have fun with designs and build these cool looking, the original Roadster was completely the design baby of, Elon Musk himself. He was the one doing the drawings, I believe, and taking that and building it, even if it was with a crew of other
But it was based
people.
off the Lotus.
Still, it's
I don't think
your first baby that he built. And I think even all the cars after that were built with some passion, I think.
But
you're furthering electrics, you're trying to save the earth, and you're trying to reduce pollution. Even if you don't believe in that, it is coming from the heart.
I believe in that. I do believe that he actually it comes from the heart that he wants to save the environment. But it's just there's something different about it. If I were to own an electric car, they just wouldn't feel the same.
Is that because there's something wrong inherently with electric cars, or is it just because it's something new, it's something different, and it's hard to switch over.
I don't think it's
and
either.
have the same passion for
I don't
something
think it's
new.
either. I think it's.
Is it a personal thing? Do you think? Because I could see a lot
I
of
just
passion.
feel
and a lot
there's
of soul
no
from
like
an electric car.
there's no like. For me, I don't know. When I see it, I just think of that was built to.
Purpose, function with no heart.
Yes. That was built to save the environment and to run on electric and to show everybody, hey, this is what we can do by our cars.
That's also only Tesla. I mean, there's a lot of companies that make their money and they're living off putting their heart and soul into converting really old cars into electrics and not putting more gasoline motors, but trying to go to something that's got a lot less moving parts, a lot less maintenance, and can build the same power, be efficient, and help the environment on top of.
Drifting.
Yeah. What about it? You can electric drift. There's an electric.
You have to go into the go in, remove some relay or something.
In the Teslas or in
In the
electric cars in
Tesla.
general? In Tesla,
And it just, I don't know.
Tesla
there's-
isn't trying to build cars right now to be Honda Civics where you can throw whatever eBay aftermarket turbo you want on it. They're trying to build complete cars that only they can service so that they can keep them pristine and nice and build up a reputable name for themselves.
But will we ever get there to that point? I don't think we will.
I think
it's
we will.
become.
Even now their cars have gone from their first car was what? The first Model S was what, $80,000 or something?
Mhm.
Now they're getting to the Model 3, which is only $30,000, which is just as cheap as a Nissan Maxima.
I know.
And you're getting a full electric car.
But that's not what I'm worried about.
Eventually, as time goes on, these cars are going to become cheaper as it's easier, and we have more of a market for the materials. And eventually, I think there will be a point to that a teenager who needs a $5,000 car may be able to get a really old Tesla.
Yes, that, but what about modifying it? What about the people who actually care?
You do hit a wall having an electric motor, but there are things you can do. There's the guy on YouTube who's done drag racing with his Tesla, completely rate reductioned it so that it's only 4,500 pounds, but the newer ones are already down to like 3,500 with everything in it. You weight reduction that, you're looking at blistering speeds. You can then turn up the amperage, putting more to the motors, shortening the life, but the same thing you do to trying to put more boost to a gasoline motor.
I'm not against the electric car.
I think it needs a lot of work.
It needs a lot of work.
I think it's a very new front of technology that doesn't have as much culture built around it. I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I don't think it's at the same place. It does. It sounds like someone's smithing over there. Like 40,000 daggers to improve their smithing skill.
Oh, I remember doing that. Okay, anyways.
I do too on the PlayStation.
Yeah, I think we're going to do that tonight.
It's technology. We're okay.
So how have Tesla influenced video games? No, I'm joking. I think I'm at the point, and most people are at the point, and I hope it stays at this point, where we can cut down on oil and gas and environmental stuff.
And only use it for things we need, like, say, rockets. If we only use
Maybe
oil and fuel
no.
for rockets. Well, right now, having an electric drive for a rocket is so far out there
Yes,
that really what we need to do is recycle
is-
what we can, land the boosters, land, any shuttlecraft that we have, and then just refuel it and use that fuel as efficiency.
This is what I'm trying to say. Is maybe like I wouldn't like if I were to own an electric car, that'd be my daily driver.
Mhm.
Okay, and then I would have a gasoline car. That's where I'd be okay with. Let's just not
Yeah.
totally get rid of the gasoline car, but let's make the gasoline car for enthusiasts.
Just because we're at a point where we have cell phones and we have, laptops and all these amazing computing devices, doesn't mean that we're at a point where you don't still get a newspaper on your driveway. And some people like sitting down still reading the newspaper. And even if that looks old to us now, I don't think gasoline cars are the same in the sense that they'll be so frowned upon. I think they'll just be another option. You can buy a diesel or a gasoline car. And I think it's going to be you can buy a gasoline car, a diesel, or an electric, and they'll all have their own divisions. There'll be people who are all about
What if we
electric
just do
performance
this?
and people all about diesel performance in big trucks or, little fuel efficient Jettas. There'll be still Volkswagen guys, there'll be Tesla guys, and they can all do and be happy with their own thing.
What if we do this? Like
I don't want to get rid of the gasoline car. I
Not-
just want
not making
more
everyone
choices for the common people. And I personally like electric, and I wouldn't mind only having electric cars via conversions or Teslas.
not making everyone drive an electric car, but producing more electric cars
I'm against making
and
everyone drive one.
producing gasoline cars for enthusiasts. So we have electric cars that are daily drivers that everyone can drive, and have those people build gasoline cars for enthusiasts. So we have, let's just say, a WRX. That's like one of the only gasoline cars, or a Ferrari 458, 488, whatever, GTB. Those are the only gasoline cars, and then the rest of like the common cars are electric.
Yeah, and I'd be okay with even if it was even
Hybrid,
more of a 50-50 split.
Or even hybrid enthusiast electric.
Yeah, you can still have hybrid
both.
too. You don't have to get rid of the gasoline motor. Like the BMW i8 still puts power to the ground with its gasoline motor. It's not just a little generator motor.
Yeah, that thing's junk though. That thing's so slow.
Still, proof of technology.
No, proof
you
of
can
technology.
Build a car that
McLaren
can put power
P.
down
Let's
with the
just.
wheels. Yeah, McLaren.
McLaren P1, Porsche 918.
Does the McLaren P1 use its gasoline motor to put down power to the ground?
It
puts down power with both, using the electric
so
as
it's
an
just
assist.
like let's use electric here and then gas here, or let's just only use electric, or let's just only use gas here. You
I
know what
also
mean?
think right now in electric, we're at the beginning point. With gasoline at one point, everyone frowned upon it and hated it. You had to use a hand crank. There was no electric starter.
Mm-hmm.
It was noisy. It was inefficient. They were fragile. And I think right now we're kind of just a little bit past that stage with electric.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think we're kind of getting closer to the wall with gasoline cars. We've innovated so much. I mean, you can only put so much boost to something, or research so many different new metals for something, or forge it, or heat it up in a different way. I mean, now we're at the point where you're using cryo treatment to, freeze things to negative hundreds of degrees just so that we can get the crystalline structure of metal to be, more perfect. But with electric cars, there's so many more innovations that we haven't discovered yet that even though you can do so much modification to a gasoline motor, I think we will get there with an electric car.
Mm-hmm.
I think people will be changing brushes out for new motors, for new brushes that conduct electricity better.
Or
I think we'll be
brushless.
using, with even graphene, working with graphene, I think LG has a battery coming out that's going to be using graphene as its conductor. It might be Samsung. But we went from 1975, I think it was first, theorized, not even built, spent decades trying to figure it out, and then we get to a point
where we just
2008 where some guy takes some Scotch tape and makes it.
Yeah.
And now, we've gone a long ways from only being able to create tiny little crystals of it, and that fit on the tip of your finger, to printing literally sheets of it, meter by square meter of, graphene sheets. And now that we've built up our manufacturing process, we can now start using that technology more. More people can work with it, more people can test it, and I think that graphene battery technology is going to grow exponentially, solving one of the biggest bottlenecks of electric cars, the batteries. Because those are the heaviest parts. They have the lowest amount of storage. They limit the range. They are the most determining factor for if electric cars will survive. But with graphene batteries, if we can improve that and widen that bottleneck, or even get rid of that bottleneck and have it be something else like the motors, you're looking at both insane amounts of power, insane range, and incredibly efficient stuff. Yeah, sure. We might be past 30 minutes.
No, we're at 28.
Oh, yeah.
So
We got a few minutes left. We'll wrap it up here soon. I think we got a lot of good information in there.
yeah, mostly about cars, none about Star Wars.
If you like to read our essays, they'll be on our blogs.
Hey guys, you're not using the green screen, are you?
No, but we were recording a podcast. It's okay. You can blame the bloopers or something like that. We're almost done. So it'd be 2 more minutes or something, and then we'll clean up.
Okay.
Cool.
You guys wait or come back in a couple minutes?
Thank you. Well, with that, I think if you'd like to read our essays, they'll be posted to our blogs. If you'd like to watch the video version of this podcast, if you're currently hearing the audio, it'll be on my YouTube channel. Do we want to do that? Post it to my YouTube channel or something if we do the video, or should we put that on the blog?
If they want to see me
I'll put it on the blog too. You know what?
shirtless.
Yeah, there'll be a link to it on this website. If you'd like to see Owen shirtless and part of it, that is in there. Anything else?
No,
Or
the
if
only
you just
person who's
finish
going to watch
recording?
this is Miss Hicks, and now
That's
she's.
fine, yeah. I don't know. I like this podcast.
No, I think she's going to hear me shirtless, and definitely not going to want to click on the video.
I think she's going to be like, what is going on here? These rowdy boys. I need to see if I have to send this to Vika. And then she'll be, typing away, looking at the video, watching our amazing work podcast, seeing all the memes, seeing, all our facial expressions, seeing me rub my hands together just then, because you couldn't see that. Maybe you heard it. I'm talking, doing hand gestures. You You can't hear that kind of stuff. It's an extra layer. It is the graphene to podcasts as batteries are to I don't know.
It's the lithium to the battery.
You're the lithium to my battery.
Okay, all right. We are signing out of the Kyle and Owen podcast.
Goodbye, I love you.